and I'm sure people will continue to creep in as we get this great conversation started. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. Welcome to our coffee and conversation. I am T. McClinty. I'm excited to moderate this conversation with Representative Liz Reyer. And before we get started, for some of you that's joining, Representative Liz Reyer has had a loss in her family, so we send her our condolences to her and thank you for being here, considering all that you're going through. And we have Representative Bianca Virnig, who is in Florida in the parking lot. How dedicated is that? We have some amazing elected officials and our Senator Jim Carlson. So excited to see you, Senator. So, as we get this conversation started, just a few logistics. Let's keep this informal. Let's have a fun conversation. It's sunny out. Let's have some fun. And let's start off. I think we have three. So, let's just start off by saying hello and tell us anything that you want to kickstart. I have a fun one. If you had to describe this moment in one word, what would it be and why? So let's just start off with the introduction and answering the question. If you had to describe this moment that we're in right now, we're going through so much. I think Curtis did a great job summing it up with the $1.2 billion infrastructure. We have fraud issues. We have ACMC. We have so much going on right now. But if you were to start off and kick off this conversation and say in one word to describe this moment, what would the word be and why? Let's start off with Representative Reyer.
Oh boy. Can that be my word? Uh, um, uh, my word for moving forward is focused
Okay. And why would you say focused?
because
Say a little bit more about that.
that's what we need to get through where we've been, where we're sitting right now, and where we want to be. We need to be focused. We need to be hopeful, but we also can't be blind to the challenges. Um,
Yeah. Thank you.
Also, I would just, um, I feel more comfortable when I know who's on the call. So I'm just wondering who user is.
Oh, absolutely. User, if you can introduce yourself or insert your name instead of user. User, going once. We don't hear
They're
anything from
muted.
user.
That's
I
not
wonder if
me, is it? That's not Jackie, is it? I come
no,
up
no,
as
no, no.
okay.
It'll say user next to your name
Yeah, and
at
you're
the top.
muted if you're trying to talk
Okay.
user. There
Oh,
Got
you
it,
go.
guys. John and Dorothy Demo.
thank
Oh, okay.
you.
Thank you. Sorry about
Appreciate
that.
that.
Thank you, Liz, for calling that
Yeah.
out.
Well, these are times right now too where speaking for other electeds and people who are visible don't feel as safe as they might. And so,
Right.
Yes,
yep.
yes.
Anyway, that's where I'm at. That's probably more than you were looking for. I don't know, T, but
No, I think that's a great start. Thank you so much. We will turn it over to Bianca.
Yeah, so I would say complex, right? We have, tomorrow is the 1 year anniversary of the assassination of Melissa and Mark, and then we'll be coming up on the anniversary of Annunciation, and we have the federal government attacking the state. Metro surge has not gone away, and we still have the great state of Minnesota. So if we want to do anything, like Liz was saying, we need to be focused. Um, we need to win elections. We need to care about each other. So to me, it's just like really everything is complex.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Representative. What about you, Senator Carlson?
Well, I think the word needs to be motivated. We need to be very informed on what's going on and motivated to react to what we see and hear. And it's uh, you know, every word we say, um, every action that's taken can be interpreted either in right or wrong, and we need to be sure that we're correct in what we say, and also, keep our tones something that isn't going to be aggravated when someone has to respond to what we say, and you know, be pick our candidates, and we know that there's a primary coming up, and be sure that we're really searching our candidate descriptions and make sure that we do the right thing in these primaries, and then throw our support to the candidates that we pick, and also make sure that you to use some of your money to make sure that they have the ability to run a campaign that isn't going to require constant fundraising, and so that they can focus on the campaigning and not on fundraising. So I think motivation is my word, and I can't say that it's my number one priority because I think most of you know what my number one priority is, and I will be. I have a doctor's appointment on Monday, and that doctor's appointment is with the surgeon that's going to examine me and find out whether I will have a shorter or longer life. And so that's my number one priority, and I'm hoping that everybody thinks about that as we get into it. And then, if you need more motivation, this whole situation with um, the Speaker Hortman has got to help motivate us to make sure that we do everything we can to get a trifecta established again. And I've got my Amy shirt on here,
Yay.
and I think that that's the person we need to run the state. And she's powerful enough, and she's dedicated enough, and she has a history of winning elections. And so I think as a leader in this state, that's going to be really important for us to throw our support behind her and make sure that she comes out on top, which I don't think that there's a question that she doesn't have the capability to do it. But all of our candidates need that kind of um, constant motivation, constant support, and get out there and and tell the people that don't know what the selection is all about, tell them what it is all about. We still have a lot of things that are happening that are challenges to the elections, and I see we have Jackie Williams on here, and she has sent me a copy of a lawsuit that's been filed by the typical anti, let's say, anti-democracy group that fights every election change, and we need to make sure that they don't prevail as well. So they've been around for as long as I've been, well, in under different names, been around for as long as I've been in the Senate. And so we need to make sure that their opposition is well funded and well supported. So
Thank you.
this is a tough time right now,
It is.
and
It is. Thank
yep.
you. Thank you so much, Senator. And as you know, our thoughts and prayers and best wishes have been with you along this journey. And we will continue to keep you in our positive thoughts and prayers as you have your doctor appointment coming up with your doctor to determine your next steps. So we are sending positive vibes your way. With that, as you know, you talked about we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot. You all describe words that encourages us right now this morning, and those who will be listening to the recording of this. Do you think we're doing enough? Do you think, as a Democratic Party, that we're doing enough? I would guess I would ask and start with Bianca. Bianca, you've been hitting the doors. I've seen you hitting the doors. I've seen you folding up flyers. What are you hearing from neighbors? What are they most frustrated about, and what are they most hopeful about?
Um, So your first question, sorry, Pete, was are we doing enough?
Yes.
And I would say no, we aren't doing enough. Um, for those of you who don't know, I'm the co-chair of rural recruitment and outreach. And many of the places that I've been to have said, we haven't had an elected DFLer here in 6, 8, 10 years. And it seems like as the party, we've sort of, as they would say, abandoned rural Minnesota. And there are Democrats out there. So we need to re-engage those populations across the state, which the House is doing. We have a dedicated person. We're trying to do more of that. But then your second two questions were sorry, again, what makes us hopeful?
Yeah, well,
And what are we hearing from people?
yeah, my question was more around community, as you were saying, we're not doing
Yeah,
enough. And you've been hitting
yeah.
the doors, you've been talking to people. What are you hearing? What are people hopeful
Well,
about, and what are they frustrated about?
what I've heard the most is really stuff related to the federal government and, the price of gas or the cost of food or um, healthcare, not having access or losing access, Social Security. A lot of it really seems tied to what the federal government has done. Metro Surge comes up when I talk to folks, like not only the impact, but what are we doing as a state to support communities? Um, not, when I first ran, it was medical aid and dying. In Mendota Heights, it was we need more open pool hours. And the tone is really different right now. It's affordability, impacts of the federal government more than anything.
So, Bianca, I want to just hold there for 1 second with you before we turn it over to Representative Reyer. You're running for re-election, and based on what you're hearing from the door, and you're saying that we're not doing enough, what made you decide to run for re-election? And do you feel like you've accomplished some of your key goals and things that you wanted to accomplish in your current term?
Yeah, yes, I would say we did some of the key goals. One of the big things for me is to work with all of the electeds that represent the area. So school board, city council, county commissioners. And even though we didn't get some of the things across um, the finish line, we did pass a bill that would allow District 197 to do a fund transfer, which will keep that school district out of statutory operating debt. And then we had a bill for addressing the lead release from Gopher Resource in Egan. Mike Sapina came and testified, right? And then we had a bill and it didn't pass, but we'll keep working at that. And then we had a bill for crisis response for Dakota County. Commissioner Halverson came and testified. So representing the needs of 52B was one of my main goals, and we were able to do that in some successful ways and some moving the needle ways. But I think one of the biggest things for me is to address the socioeconomic divide between school districts, which we have not done a real good job of. So I would say, yes, we were successful in some things and maybe not so much in others. So for me, I want to run to work on those big issues, to work on funding, to work on IT modernization was something that, you've heard me talk about for 3 years, and we made progress last year. Or in the first half of the biennium, we made progress in the second half of the biennium. I want to see that start to be implemented. Like I want to see actual change, not just the words on the paper.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the things that, and that will help address fraud. It will help improve client services. It will help reduce workforce turnover. The IT piece is really an important infrastructure change.
Thank you. Thank you, Bianca. And I can't vote for you, but I've seen you everywhere, and I've seen all the great work, and I read some of the great work that you are doing, and so I do follow you. And if I could vote for you, I would, but I also have been very supportive of you and all the work that you've been doing. So thank you, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
running again. And Representative Liz Reyer, what about you? What are you hearing at the doors, good and bad, and are we doing enough?
There's a fine line on doing enough. I think that everyone, all of us, self included, need to be pushing ourselves to say, are there things that I can be doing in addition to what I'm doing? At the same time, this is the cliche is it's a marathon at a sprint pace, and we need to be making sure that we are taking care of ourselves so that we can sustain it. And so to me, that means if I don't do something every day, if I'm not working on policy or campaigning or some way of um, bringing this work forward, um, I feel like I'm looking in the mirror and going, well, I could have done something today, but it might not be something that anyone else ever sees. And then I'm going to go to a park or go walk in the woods or be with my people. And so I think we all have to find that balance in pushing ourselves. It is a time where we all need to be a bit driven, but we can't be obsessed. And so what because we'll just burn out, most of us. So to me, it's like I'm always careful about saying to people, you need to do more when I don't know their life circumstances. And that might be really raw for me right now. For those of you who don't know, my brother, who I was very close to, died unexpectedly last Sunday. So that's what's going on with me. And so for me, it's been like I've had to give myself a lot of grace this week, as you can imagine, and a full weekend of Hortman Memorial things also. So, but I want everyone to be out saying there are doors to knock, there are funds to be raised. When a year ago, when we debated long and hard about whether we should have the garden party, it was in that interim between when Melissa and Mark were murdered, but when the Hoffmans were so seriously wounded. But it was between the events and the funeral, the garden party was scheduled. And we talked about, should we hold it off? Is it disrespectful? And I kept hearing in my head Melissa saying, raise money, knock doors. And I figured it would just piss her off if we didn't do it.
Yeah.
And it turned into an incredible event. So I just want to thank you all. I think this is really um, wonderful for me to be with you all today and to be able to process some of these things. So um, thank you for this space. But there was another part to your question.
No, you're doing amazing responding to the question. It was mostly centered around what are you hearing at the doors, the good things, and what are people frustrated about? What are you hearing?
Yeah, I've been going to doors where people don't know me. I've been going to precincts in Mendota Heights, and the precincts in Egan I've never represented. And I'm going to doors that tend to be either independent or we have no data. So I am hearing, Bianca talked about Gopher. I'm here. I was in one precinct. I had 11 people I actually made contact with. Four of them brought up Gopher resources because what we're doing, they don't feel like it's enough, and they appreciate that something has happened, but they're really concerned. Um, I'm hearing from people that I don't think we've gotten the message through of how the things that we passed this year help them in this time of affordability crisis, or
Mm.
the things that we've been doing. And I've been sitting and trying to think about how, you know, groceries are more expensive, gas is more expensive. We get it. Those are federally driven. How are the things that we've done in the past year, in the past session, how are they helping? Well, we got $10 million for food banks and food shelves. That's really good. Uh, we've done some things, but I don't think I have not found the messages to really be striking home. And people I'm finding really want empathy and want to be heard in how hard things are right now. So those are what I'm hearing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And before I recognize Curtis' hand, I just want to um, also pose a question to you, Representative Reyer. You are finishing your term as representative, and you are now running for Senate. What are you most proud of, and what made you want to run for the Senate position?
Um, I am really, really proud of many, contributions, direct legislation that I've carried in the healthcare space, the medical debt reforms and the bankruptcy reforms, um, the making sure that for-profit health plans couldn't be making money off of our public programs. And now we're seeing, federal government, United Health Group, and others are being investigated for Medicaid fraud. So people were saying to me, "Oh, it's all just Medicare. They should be in Medicaid." It's like, no, what they do in one place, they do somewhere else. So I'm really proud of those things. I'm very, very proud of my work on capital investment. There are some things that are local. The bike path that connects is under construction, connecting Cedar Avenue with Lone Oak, so people don't have to bike on Highway 13 anymore. Um, but also the work that we've done to bring environmental justice, bring climate and sustainability more explicitly into the conversation about capital investment and have it be part of how capital investment is done across the state. So I'm really proud of those things. As far as why I'm changing directions or moving. Uh, I wouldn't have been considering it if Senator Carlson hadn't decided to retire. It was not in my plan. Uh, my plan was to build seniority in the House and keep making an impact there. And I love the House. It's really a case of I'm not leaving the House. I'm going to the Senate, which is a strong position to be in. I've seen how much we get done when senators and representatives partner effectively and are communicating and working together. I've also seen how well the Senate can operate when they're pulling together as a team. But I think Senator Carlson could tell us stories about how we get people who are like, no, my way or the highway, and hold things up. And so for me, I'm excited to be working and building more bridges with the House. And also, I've done a lot of change management and culture change in my professional world. And so, to the extent that I can bring my background and try to help our caucus also be more effective, I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. And thank you for running in Senator Carlson's position since he is retiring. Senator Carlson, before we get to you for a response to the same question, we're going to turn it over to Curtis for a question.
Well, I was just curious. One of the things we were talking about was the stuff is at the federal level. I mean, obviously, oh, let me turn my video on. There we go. Obviously, tariffs, things like that impact affordability. Gasoline, fertilizer, these things related to the war in the Persian Gulf. But one thing I feel like we can control is housing, and housing is like unquestionably the biggest ticket for a lot of people, especially young people and young families. And I noticed that the Starter Homes Act, or whatever it was called, for the third year in a row didn't get across the finish line. And for those who don't know, this was a housing reform bill that's designed to make it easier to build housing around the state. And it failed largely due to lobbying from the League of Minnesota Cities, who lobbied strongly against it. So it seems like local governments keep lobbying against this reform. We're in an environment where housing regulatory costs for the average single family home are around $130,000 per home nationwide, and Minnesota is slightly higher than that. And some of that is due to like requirements like, that union labor is used, and I'm okay with that type of thing. But some of these things seem a little frivolous. I know that changes to the building code just in the last 10 years add $40,000 to the cost of each new home. So I'm wondering, what do we do as constituents to get some of these reforms across the finish line? Because housing is such a big part of the affordability equation, and it just seems like we're completely failing. I grew up in Massachusetts, which has a much worse, much more acute housing shortage than we have in Minnesota. And the people there just they have this attitude like there's no point in even trying anymore. Because it just seems like everything has failed. And I don't want to get to that point as a state because it's just so depressing. So I'm wondering, what can we do?
Well, thank you, Curtis, for that question. Senator Carlson, do you want to, or anyone want to respond to that, but then also want to also give Senator Carlson time to respond to the previous question. And then as you are leaving and retiring, Senator Carlson, I also want to give you some time to also talk about what you were most excited and happy of the things that you accomplished in your term as senator. So anyone want to respond to Curtis' question, and then we'll turn it over to Senator Carlson. It was a housing question.
Yeah, it has been a really um, hard and frustrating area of policy. And Ron, I agree with you. Hearing from our local officials in on the housing question in the chat. Um, I started in my first term. I was on the housing committee and also on the preventing homelessness committees. And as we know, there are a lot of regulatory barriers. There are a lot of there's so much we don't want those people in our neighborhoods, what'll happen to our housing values. And I think it's a symptom of not really thinking about how the present focusing on the common good helps us all. Um, but I've watched like the zoning bills and the housing bills get more and more acceptable to the lobbying influences, but at the same time, I haven't been on that committee. I haven't been close to it, but I worry that it's going to be one of those cases where every time you address one of the concerns, it'll be, yeah, but what about this? And a new concern will pop up because there is a really embedded resistance. I think one of the solutions is having people who are more focused on the broader benefits in places of local authority, in positions of local authority. And I think, we've seen in Egan, we've seen developments happen, but we've also seen others that haven't. I think I would like to hear from both our council members on, the example of the Blue Cross land is when the neighbors weren't accepting of Johnson Brothers distribution center. It's like, well, how about if we just have people living there? And now that there's a conversation about having people living there, it's like, well, what about the traffic? When is it going to not be about something and just not have it? What is it going to take from a local perspective to change cultures so that statewide legislation can get through?
Thank you, Liz. Does any one of our city council members want to also weigh in on this question?
This is Mike. I'll weigh in just briefly on it. Few different things. Big picture, kind of the biggest picture is that isn't even a Minnesota issue. Obviously, it's a nationwide issue, and it's been happening for generations, which is that housing is a commodity now, right? When I was a kid, you know, my dad, was worked as an electrician. My mom didn't work, and they could afford a house. My grandparents lived next door to us. My grandpa, his whole career, did odd jobs. My grandmother didn't work, and they could afford a house. Nobody like that can afford a house today. So it's not just what's happening in Minnesota, what's happening with the prices. It's like what's happened to the market. The market has changed completely since all of us were young people. So that's not something a single city, and I'm not even sure it's something a single state can work on. Maybe at a state level you can, but that's kind of the genesis of the problem. Is that we can change the law and say, hey, instead of having to have a 12,000 square foot lot, you can build on 8,000 square foot lots. That doesn't mean the developer is going to build affordable housing. It means he'll still build expensive housing, but now get more of them in and make more money. Doesn't solve the affordability issue. It does produce more housing. I would agree with that. And maybe a side effect of that is that it solves helps with affordability because there's more supply, but it's not creating affordable housing. So as long as we're looking at trying to do a market-driven solution, I think we're going to have a lot of trouble creating the amount of affordable housing that we actually need for the number of people that need it. And I'm speaking from experience. I have 2 kids here in Minnesota who want to live in a house, want to buy their own house. One of them just did with assistance from us. He wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise. The other isn't quite at that point yet, but she's been asking all the time, like, what happens when I need to buy a house? How in the world is that going to happen? You guys all got to. When do I get to do it? With regard to something that I believe Liz was pointing out, there is local resistance. So we just had a workshop a couple nights ago where someone was proposing some townhomes on one of the few remaining large lots in Eagan. And one of our council members essentially said, I'm not going to approve any multifamily housing on this site. So, and that's the kind of thing that will need a supermajority in order to pass. And more than likely, he'll bring another council member along with him, and it won't pass. So there is local resistance as well. I think the solution that I would like to see is we already do a comprehensive plan every 10 years, and that's mandatory. The state makes us do that. And of course, we want to do it because it lets us look 30 years into the future and see what our city is going to look like. I think the solution needs to be folded into that comprehensive plan process, which is starting right now for our next comprehensive plan. So I would have liked to see the legislature focus more on the comprehensive plans that all of us cities have to do anyway and say, this is what we'd like to see you have in there as the guidelines of how you're going to be developing housing, in the next 30 years. And maybe next year, the legislature, will look at that avenue. So Gary, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I appreciate those comments, Mike. And I do agree with Representative Reyer. I think the legislation that we have seen over the past couple of sessions has become more agreeable to those who have been lobbying against it. The issue that we have is one of local authority, the local community, and not just the city council, but the local residents to have a voice in where housing is built. And Mike pointed out that we've had some issues with some proposals where we have this NIMBY syndrome, and we've encountered it so many times over the last few years. In the case of Blue Cross Blue Shield, we had a proposal that was opposed. And you always have the issue of reminding people, well, if it isn't this that's built in near your neighborhood, then what will be? And then you have another proposal that's made, and then the concerns are, well, this will involve too much traffic or noise, and we don't want this either. And so I've come under to the conclusion that in these cases where land is available, people would rather just have the city purchase it for a park, and of course we can't do that. But Uh, we do have this challenge also on our local council, where, as Mike pointed out, we have a voting block that whenever there is a proposal to uh, change zoning to allow housing in what currently is retail or office. We have a couple of council members who are opposed to that. And in order to be able to make that change, there has to be a certain minimum component of affordability that would allow us to make the change with a 3-2 vote rather than a 4-1 vote. And we have to try to overcome that. But Mike and I have been working for housing, and we'll continue to do that. And we hope that we can continue to make progress with the legislature in the upcoming session, because this is an issue that's not going away, and we need to deal with it.
Thank you. Thank you. It was great to hear from our council members. Anyone else have anything they want to weigh in before we turn it over to Senator Carlson? Ron, did you have anything else? No? Okay. Senator Carlson, you want to weigh in on that question and also the previous question? Up, you're muted, Senator.
There we go. It is a complicated issue, and I guess my first thought is, while our council is given a challenge that I don't think anyone really loves to be involved in, because it's so personal to a lot of people. As you may remember, I grew up in Egan. I live right next to what was our farm here, and I was introduced to housing back in the I guess it would be the late 50s, when we actually had something that we don't have since then, and that was the GI Bill. The GI Bill helped a lot of people get housing, and that's why Cedar Grove is a collection of some of the longest, let's say, the houses that have been longest occupied by their present owners. And I don't know that we can recreate something like that, but that is something that makes housing affordable. And it also, um, to some degree, protects the future owners of those homes. We don't want to have all sorts of expensive um, requirements on some of these homes, so that we can provide them to people who can afford them. And that's I don't know what the best approach is, but I know that our one of our approaches has to have people who are dedicated to NIMBY and dedicated to large lots and all sorts of things that maybe makes them feel comfortable with buying a home. That We need to make sure that they are ready to accept homes that may not be palaces, and they may be multifamily. And you look at some of these, even in other countries where we have multi-owner buildings, that's where we're headed, and we have to have people that are comfortable with that kind of real estate, and stay away from making it so expensive that the new buyers cannot afford it. One of the things that I have to say in my background today is my daughter's home. She lives in Culver City, California, and in Culver City, it's not the physical house that is the let's say the expensive part of it. It's the lot. So it's a lot of um, the costs that they encounter is just having lot sizes be something that people can live with. Uh, Her house is, I don't know how you would describe it without being a little bit negative on it, but her house has is a fairly small house, fairly simple, no basement. Um, but it's worth almost $2 million. And that $2 million is mostly the land that it sits on. And it also has taxes that are just astronomically high. And they have the system of um, God, I can't remember um, what yeah, they had a proposition that uh, allowed people to stay in their homes and keep their taxes low, and that makes it so that they don't they don't sell their homes until they die or until something else happens where someone can afford to pick up that house again. Because, for instance, her taxes are somewhere right around $15,000 a year, her real estate taxes. That's pretty it's steep, and it prevents people from moving around very much. She has people on her street that their parents have gotten their homes back way back when it was cheap to live in Culver City, and as long as the family stays in that home, their taxes are much more affordable than what they would be if they would uh, if the ownership would change on that home. So that kind of thing is coming to us, and I think we have to be sure that we can avoid this extensive increase in taxes, increase in land values, things like that. That's going to be it's going to come, and I think I think the local decision makers are that's really in their control, and we have to be sure that we can accept what's going to happen to those parcels that we want to make sure that people can eventually live in. And I think that there's going to be a massive change in, for instance, multifamily housing. That's going to be something that's going to it's going to come to Egan. It's going to come to all of the suburbs, and we have to be sure that we're ready for that, and that our home buyers are also ready for that. So I don't know if that clicks with anybody in the audience here, but um, it's uh, it's something that my family has lived through, and we can see it getting coming where the home prices are going to reflect a lot of the things that we demand of these parcels, and we need to make sure that we can accept them. So, if I think um, well, I've said mainly the things that really stress me out about this, but I'd like to hear what other people think is a reasonable way to attack uh, the housing problem that we have, and how we can make sure that people can afford the houses that they want to live in the future.
Well, I mean, there's a couple comments and questions in the chat. Thank you, Senator, for your response to the question on housing. I know that I have, I think most of you know, I have three adult sons, and two of them are currently in the process of trying to own their first home and the challenges that they're going through. But they also talk about renters and the renters cost, which I think Ron kind of commented a little bit on as well, because I don't want that to get missed. But I also see that Mike Sapina had his hand up and then it's down, and now
Oh,
Representative Reyer, maybe you both wanted to weigh in?
yep. I'll just be a second. I just wanted to comment on, so Jim was referring to Proposition 13 in California. We lived out there about 10 years after it passed. And, for as many things as California gets right with, some of their progressive policies, they sure screw some things up too. So that one was a way of, as Jim said, limiting how high your property taxes can go up. And of course, the result was two identical houses next door to each other. If one person lived in it for 40 years and the other person just bought it 2 years ago, their property taxes will probably be, quadruple or more, because of this weird system they have. And of course, they have the same weird kind of thing going on with their primary and their voting as we've saw recently. So yeah, they try, but there's some there's some things that they just don't get right yet. So anyway, sorry about that. Go ahead, Liz.
Well, if you have people vote on that stuff, that's what they're gonna vote for.
So just the point I wanted to bring up is the impact of private equity on the housing market in Minnesota, nationally, and generally, really the impact of private equity on healthcare. We've seen it on home improvement. We've seen it youth sports in other states, all over the place. Private equity coming in, hollowing out economies and profiting and leaving things worse off. So I think that that's another piece that I'm going to be looking at. I've been looking at private equity and especially in the health and human services area, but I'm starting to think about it more broadly.
Thank you, Ron. I see you and Curtis are having conversations in the chat. Any one of you want to weigh in?
Well, it seems like we're at a bit of a loggerhead between whether rental assistance or home ownership assistance is the higher priority. I respond to that with a both and phenomenon. And the one piece that I asked in the chat, and maybe our representatives can talk to this, is there was, I believe, a housing bill that was passed this last legislative session. And I'm not sure what its function is, what it's aimed at, and which of those two groups or both will be assisted by that funding that's coming from the state level and how it trickles down into local communities. So I just threw out a whole bunch of stuff, and I don't know if anybody wants to respond to it. Okay, then.
Well, I'll go off mute. I was just trying not to dominate the conversation. Both and there's more rental assistance. You'll recall in the trifecta we had a $1 billion housing bill that was targeted on rental assistance, on housing infrastructure bonds and investment in new housing, in preservation of naturally occurring affordable housing, on improvements for, I mean, record-setting improvement for public housing improvements, which, I mean, the federal public housing is deteriorating at an appalling rate for reasons I could go into at length. So we're bolstering that. So it's an all-and approach. This year's budget was similar in its effort to do more, but we had to find money that was available. There were no new funds to put into it. So Chair Mike Howard was very creative in finding places where funds weren't being spent and repurposing them so that we had rental assistance. So we had I think it was another 100 million in housing infrastructure bonds, which then leverage other federal and foundation and private sources to fund housing construction. So it's all of the above, but none of it gets at the root causes of the things that Curtis has been talking about from a purchasing perspective that you're referencing, Ron, from a rental perspective. Um, all of it, we are still at the level of trying to put band-aids on rather than fixing the underlying issues, which I think, uh, there's a share that's local, there's a share that's state, and there's a lot that's national.
So
And
will it take a
I just want to add that the benefits that we got from the GI Bill and other programs going back into the last century also embedded redlining and racial and social disparities into our housing market that we're still seeing the effects of, and
Yeah.
just so many impacts that we see to this day.
So will it take a trifecta to pass the legislation necessary to do all the things that you've described? Do we need to win the House?
President and the Congress, the U.S. Senate and U.S. House. Yeah, that would be a help. I want that trifecta because that's what we need. You know, we
How about at the state level, though?
it'll help,
Well, I was
but
gonna say,
but
I mean, because I mean, I feel like when we've had the trifecta, right? And so did we accomplish what we needed to? I mean, I just had this conversation yesterday in Wisconsin about when you have a trifecta. Having a trifecta, will that help? Will that get the work done that needs to happen? Not just on housing, but there are so many other key issues. I feel like there's so much that I want to cover in this conversation that we don't have enough time to because we're at 8 minutes away and we didn't talk about ACMC, fraud, immigration, and some of the things I think Bianca hit on. But having a trifecta, will that get us over the line to improve housing, immigration justice, the fraud, the some of the other key things that people are saying at the doors? And I guess I would ask that to Bianca.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll help, right? So we won't spend time. I mean, uh, I'll use ed finance as an example. We heard dumb bills and elections, which was littered with election deniers, was a very functional committee in the split legislature. But in ed finance, we heard the same bills over and over again, bills that the bill author didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know the technical pieces. So I think if we have a trifecta, we can actually dig into the heart of the issues instead of wasting our time on really poorly written, poor legislation, poor policy, just so somebody can get a bill heard. I think we need that to be able, and then two, like we won't make any progress on gun legislation without a trifecta, right? And that is what I hear from a lot of folks. So if we could do that and, check that off the list, that gives you more bandwidth to focus on other things. So yeah, I think we need a trifecta just to stop wasting time.
On the federal and state level, correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just want to make sure we highlight that. On the federal and state level, we got a lot of work to do. Anybody else have any questions as we get ready to wrap up? I want to end it on anything, your takeaway. What is something you want to say that you want us to hear from you as we end this coffee conversation? I want to thank you, Representative Reyer, Bianca, Senator Carlson. Any closing remarks, anything that you want to add that may not have been covered during this coffee conversation? Let's start with Senator Carlson.
Thank you, T. Well, I guess I need to say something very political because my most pleasure is that I think we have gotten rid of um, our MAGA Speaker of the House because when I've been in the Senate in the last few years here, what we didn't hear was all of the times when she absolutely refused to hear bills that came over to her that were actually passed by the Senate. Maybe they were even bipartisan bills, but she was the roadblock for a lot of things that could have been heard by the House and perhaps passed there.
Gun bill.
And like the gun bill. No, that's one that would have. I think that would have actually brought more bipartisanship to the legislature. But she made it so that if anybody dare vote against her will, that they were looking at the same kind of thing that the president was doing to some of the people that weren't voting the way he wanted. And I think I'm so glad that she is largely out of the legislature and out of the ability to affect anything. Um, and that I think is going to be something that's going to probably contribute to a trifecta that I would like. And I think maybe we can focus on things that are a little bit better supportive of the citizens of Minnesota than just this refusal to hear some of the things that the House leadership doesn't like. So that's I keep thinking that's the one thing that it made me extremely happy is that at least one person is going to be kicked out of the legislative process. And hopefully we might have a couple more. And if anybody really wants to find out how frustrated you can be, just kind of tune into the recordings of the Senate um, the Senate sessions, which they're historically there forever, and listen to some of the ridiculous things like uh, future Senator Reyer said that we have dumb bills. We've had dumb proposals and dumb amendments that have been proposed. And I think hopefully we can uh, take down the voices that have caused us so much, um, let's say, slow down progress so much, and we can get some things done. So um, I'm happy that we have another chance here. I'm happy that we're looking at some real achievements in the next election. And I'm hoping that everybody is going to put their shoulders to the wheel and we'll get another trifecta or we'll get a legislature and an administration that really wants to get things done.
Thank you, Senator Carlson. Representative Reyer or Bianca, any closing remarks? Anything, your takeaway, anything you want us to hear or something
Yeah,
that
I'll go.
wasn't covered?
Yeah, so here, this is like my ask. To get a trifecta, this is an all hands on deck situation, right? So we need, if you can donate your time, talents, and money, that would be awesome. If you don't have capacity, if all you do is pick a half a dozen candidates and like and share on their Facebook page, to help the algorithm. If you can walk in a parade, maybe you grew up in Duluth or Cook County and you're willing to go and do a door knock, once or twice in the interim. Because like Liz said, so yeah, so I think we need to do more. Everybody, if you can, realizing not everybody has capacity. So if you need help on ways to get involved, let me know because I have some that are very low key, easy to do, and then some that are a little more intensive.
Thank you, Bianca. Liz?
Well, I just want to say that I thank Bianca every day because Representative Virnig brings this joyous, energetic,
Yes.
ferocious energy to every room she's in. And so we're seeing the impact of that. So I just have to call that out. To me, I am, despite being a little droopy this week, I am an optimist by nature. I believe in the power of what we're doing. I see the hope and the disgust that people have with how the negative plays. And so it's like, bring your vision, bring your dreams, bring your energy in whatever way that you have it, because we are going to get that trifecta back. There are so many weak seats, and I don't say that out of a fantasy. I say it out of a look at the weak seats that I see out there and the good candidates that we have. We have 201 candidates. We have every single race with a Democrat in it. And we have good Democrats. They're not like some of these Republican seat fillers that we've got locally. And
Mhm.
so it's like we have a very realistic chance. We have Amy Klobuchar with her coattails. We have so many good things. My plea is get out there for Keith Ellison. We need to keep Keith. And from what I hear about the constitutional officers, the statewide races, his is the most at risk. Fight, fight, fight for Keith because has been doing so much to save not just Minnesota, but our country. So, and thank you all for being here week after week.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Ron?
Two things real quick. First, I want to say a personal thank you on my own behalf, as well as SD 52, to Senator Carlson for his years of devoted service to us
Yeah.
all. Your voice has been incredibly amazing, and we are going to miss it in the Senate, but we are not going to miss you because you're going to be around for a lot longer. Second, you want to do something? About 2 hours from now, come on out to the corner of Pilot Knob and Yankee Doodle. We are there twice a week, as many of you know, Wednesdays and Saturdays at noon. And whether we have 25 people or 250 people, what we are reaching are all the drivers going by. And they know we're there. And they may or may not recognize us as DFLers because, strictly speaking, it's no kings, but it really is DFLers. And we reach a lot of people that way. But in addition to today, we're coming out tomorrow. Tomorrow is Trump's birthday. We are protesting Trump's birthday. Tomorrow is the Hortman anniversary. We are remembering her tomorrow. And tomorrow is Flag Day. So both today and tomorrow, Pilot Knob and Yankee Doodle at noon for an hour. And among other things, you'll see your friends there, and it's very therapeutic to be among your friends who are carrying on this torch. So thanks.
Thank you, Ron. I've had the fortunate pleasure of being out on the corner and mingling and meeting new people and saying hello to friends that I know already. So it's been a great opportunity to be able to do that. I actually didn't know that it was happening today. I think last week when I was on the corner, it was going to be tomorrow. So thank you for mentioning that it's today and tomorrow, but I will see you tomorrow.
Okay,
And with
good deal.
that, I'm going to shut down our coffee conversation.